They were going to blame him for this, and Commander Jake Morrison knew it. For 3 weeks, the most important research station in the system had been dead silent, and every unanswered hail felt like another nail in his career's coffin. 47 of the galaxy's top scientists, including his old mentor Dr. Carolyn Fisher, had just vanished. And if he didn't bring them back, his own future would vanish too. What do you think happened out there? Stick around, because the answer is crazier than you could ever imagine. 21 days of silence. Earth Command was breathing down his neck. Jake pushed away from his desk and stared into the cold, indifferent starfield from the viewport of his ship, the UHSS Pathfinder. He'd spent 12 years out in the black, climbing from a rookie pilot to commander, but he'd never seen a mystery like this. "Commander, we're approaching the Neptune station," Lieutenant Danny Cooper's voice, still a bit shaky with nerves, crackled over the comms. "ETA 15 minutes. "Good," Jake replied. "Run a full diagnostic. I want to know if that station even blinks funny before we dock." The Pathfinder slid through the void, its engines a bare whisper against the silent backdrop of deep space. In the distance, Neptune was a gorgeous blue marble, looking far more peaceful than Jake felt. As the station grew larger, a spinning web of modules and solar panels, everything looked eerily normal. The lights were on, the docking bay was primed and ready. "Scanning now," Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez reported from the science station. She was the best there was, a master at finding things that didn't want to be found. "Life support is active. Atmosphere is breathable. Power levels are nominal. Wait, I'm picking up life signs, all 47 of them." "Where are they?" Jake asked, a knot tightening in his gut. "That's the strange part, sir. They're all packed into one area, the quantum laboratory, and according to these readings, they haven't left that room in weeks." Jake felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Can you get us a visual?" Amy's fingers danced across her console. "Negative. All cameras in that section are offline. Looks like they were manually shut down." "Danny, take us in. By the book," Jake commanded. He turned to his security chief, Frank Miller, a mountain of a man who'd seen it all. "Frank, get your team geared up. Full combat loadout. We're going in ready for a party." The docking sequence took a tense 10 minutes. As the airlock hissed open, Jake waited for the all-clear from Frank's team. When it came, he stepped onto the station, Amy right behind him. The corridors were pristine and silent, bathed in the soft blue of the emergency lights. Nothing seemed out of place, which made the hairs on Jake's neck stand up even more. They swept through the station, finding the living quarters perfectly tidy, like the crew had just stepped out for a minute. But the cafeteria told a different story. Plates of 3-week-old food sat on the tables, covered in a fuzzy layer of mold. Whatever happened, it happened fast, right in the middle of dinner. "This is just bizarre," Amy whispered, her scanner buzzing softly. "No signs of a fight, no airborne toxins, no system failures. It's like they all just got up and walked away." 15 minutes later, they stood before the quantum laboratory. The door was sealed, but the control panel glowed green. Jake felt his hand tremble just a bit as he pressed it against the scanner. The door slid open into a cavernous room filled with humming, otherworldly machines. And there, in the center of it all, stood 47 people in a perfect silent circle. Dr. Caroline Fisher was at the front, her eyes closed and a peaceful, unnerving smile on her face. The other researchers stood behind her in concentric rings, as still and lifeless as mannequins. They didn't even flinch. "Dr. Fisher?" Jake called out, his voice echoing in the vast space. Nothing, not a twitch. He took a step forward, but Frank's heavy hand grabbed his arm. "Sir, we don't know what this is. Could be contagious." "Amy, what are you seeing?" "Commander their vital signs are completely normal," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. "But there's something else. a faint energy field surrounding them. It's some kind of quantum field I've never encountered. I have to try, Jake said, pulling away from Frank. He reached out and placed his hand on Caroline's shoulder. The universe fractured. For a split second, Jake was everywhere at once. He was touching her shoulder. He was still standing in the doorway. He was on the other side of the room. 1,000 different possibilities all happening at the same time. He staggered back, gasping for air as reality snapped back into place. Caroline's eyes slowly opened, and she looked at him with an expression of ancient wisdom. "Commander Morrison," she said, her voice sounding like 1,000 voices at once. "You came. We saw all the paths, and in most of them you arrived right at this moment." Then, as one, all the other scientists opened their eyes. "What did you do?" Jake demanded. "We succeeded," Caroline said with that same serene smile. "We created a stable quantum state. We can now exist in every possibility all at once. We've seen every choice you could ever make, Jake. We've transcended." Amy gasped. "That's impossible. Observation collapses the wave." "Not anymore," another scientist chimed in. "We are beyond observation, and now we will give this gift to everyone. A universe with no regrets, no wrong turns." Jake saw the horror in her plan. A life without choice isn't a life, it's a cage. He looked at the main console and saw a single massive red button. "Emergency field purge." Caroline smiled. "We've already seen you press that button, Jake. It doesn't work in time." But she hadn't seen the Jake standing before her. He ignored the button and instead kicked open a panel, ripping out a bundle of coolant pipes. Super cold liquid helium sprayed across the floor, instantly destabilizing the field. The scientists screamed, collapsing to the ground as their infinite selves crashed back into one single mortal body. They were dazed, confused, but human again. Jake had saved them from their own perfection, proving that sometimes the most important thing in the universe is the freedom to make the wrong choice. Model. Have you ever been told you're crazy? Not just, "Hey, that's a silly idea." Crazy, but full-blown, "We're sending a medical team to evaluate you." Crazy? That's what happened to Dr. Caroline Pfizer. She and her team sent a message to Earth Command claiming they'd broken the laws of physics. Command's response? They sent me, Commander Jake, on my ship, the Pathfinder, to check on their mental state. They thought a 3-week radio silence in deep space had made them snap. What we found wasn't insanity. It was a discovery that would either save humanity or get us all wiped out. And I had to make the call, stick around, because you won't believe how a simple welfare check turned into a mission to prevent the annihilation of our entire species. When we docked and came aboard their remote research station, the place felt weird. The air hummed, and it felt like my eyes couldn't quite focus, like looking at a 3D movie without the glasses. Caroline Pfizer met us. She looked exhausted, with eyes that seemed 1,000 years old. "Thank you for coming, Commander," she said, her voice steady despite it all. "They thought we were hallucinating, didn't they?" I just nodded, and she led us to the main lab. In the center of the room, she hit a button on a console. The air started to shimmer, and a ball of pure light appeared, growing until it was the size of a car. Inside it, I saw my ship, the Pathfinder. But it wasn't just my ship. It was 1,000 versions of it at once, flickering like ghosts. One was docked at a starbase I'd never visited, another was scarred from a battle that never happened, and one was decked out with tech straight out of science fiction. "What you're seeing is what we've created," Caroline explained, her voice filled with a strange mix of pride and fear. "We call it a quantum lock. When we activate it, an object enters a state of pure potential. It's here and not here, perfect and broken. It exists in a stable superposition." My science officer, Amy, stared with her mouth open. The military applications. A ship in that state. You couldn't hit it. Weapons would just pass right through. Vincent, another scientist, nodded grimly. Exactly. We tried to tell Earth Command, but they dismissed us, called our claims impossible. So, we decided to give them undeniable proof. Caroline corrected him. By holding ourselves in a superposition field for 3 weeks, Commander, for us it felt like centuries. We've lived through countless lifetimes in there, she continued, her gaze distant. We've seen every possible outcome of this technology. We've seen how it can save worlds and how it can destroy them. We know what it means for humanity's future in the galaxy. I shot a look at Frank, my tactical officer. This was so far above our pay grade it wasn't even funny. But I couldn't deny what I was seeing, and I knew she was right. A ship that couldn't be hit? It would change warfare, space travel, everything. I need to report this immediately, I said. Doctor, I'm ordering you and your team to pack up. You're coming back with us. Of course, she said, but then her expression became deadly serious. But there's something you need to understand first. We haven't just seen possibilities, we've seen the future. Humanity is going to need this technology, and very, very soon. My blood ran cold. You're talking about first contact with an alien species, aren't you? Caroline shook her head. I'm talking about war. A powerful empire called the Krell Dominion has been watching us for 6 months. They're debating whether to absorb us into their empire or to simply erase us from existence. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All of human history, all our progress, was just a bug under a cosmic microscope for some alien empire. Against them, with our current ships, we wouldn't last a day, she said. Then a grim smile touched her lips. But with quantum-locked ships? Ships that can't be hit, that don't follow the rules of physics as they know them? With this, we might actually have a fighting chance. I wanted to call her a paranoid lunatic, but the certainty in her eyes was unshakable, the look of someone who had already seen the battle and knew the outcome. How long do we have? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. 3 months. 4 if we get lucky, she replied. When they attack, it will be a single coordinated strike. They'll hit every planet, every base, every ship at once. They'll try to snuff us out in a single blow. As she spoke, the glowing sphere in the lab flickered. It now showed Earth. I saw it peaceful and blue, then I saw it burning, the continents scorched black from orbital bombardment, and in the worst version, I saw it shatter into a billion pieces of dead rock. Frank swore under his breath beside me. That's one path, Vincent said quietly, but it's not the only one. The future isn't set, Commander. It's quantum. It's just a cloud of possibilities until a choice is made. In that moment, I made my choice. Amy, download everything, all their research on the quantum lock, I ordered. Frank, help the doctors pack their gear. We're out of here in 1 hour. We took them back to Earth Command. It took 4 long days, and the entire time the scientists showed me their work. They made tools phase in and out of reality. They walked me through the mind-bending math, and by the time we arrived, I was a true believer. They had weaponized uncertainty itself. As you'd expect, the top brass at Earth Command were skeptical. Admirals who thought in terms of armor and firepower couldn't wrap their heads around it. That is, until Caroline took a 10-ton shuttle and made it completely untouchable. They fired everything at it, and every shot passed right through. The skepticism vanished pretty fast after that. Suddenly, the project had unlimited funding. Within 2 weeks, they started building the first quantum-locked warship, designated the UHSS Defender. Its only job was to prove this tech could work on a massive scale. And guess who they picked to be the test pilot? Since I was the guy who brought the miracle workers home, Command figured I was the best man for the job. The Defender was small, more like a speedboat than a battleship, but it was crammed with the most advanced tech humanity had ever produced. The whole ship was one big engine designed to do one thing: exist and not exist at the same time. On the day of the first flight, I sat in the captain's chair with a crew of 20 brave volunteers. Caroline was at her station, her face calm. Through the main view screen, I saw Earth looking so fragile and beautiful. "All systems green, Commander," Caroline reported. "Ready to attempt superposition on your mark." I took a deep breath. "Engage quantum lock." The ship gave a violent shudder and the lights flickered. I felt that bizarre sensation again of being in multiple places at once, but 1,000 times stronger. It felt like my very atoms were being stretched across reality. "Quantum lock achieved," Caroline announced, her voice ringing with triumph. "We are in a stable superposition, existing in roughly 2,000 distinct locations at once." I pushed the thrusters, and the ship moved. Our sensors showed us moving along 2,000 different paths simultaneously. It was dizzying, but it worked. The real test came a few minutes later. "Commander, 3 drones incoming! Hot!" my tactical officer yelled. They were programmed with alien attack patterns. They fired lasers, missiles, everything they had. And every single shot passed straight through us. We were a ghost. A phantom. We were completely untouchable. We had done it. Over the next 3 months, we didn't just build one ship, we built a whole fleet of ghosts. When the Krell finally arrived, their massive, terrifying fleet blotting out the stars, they expected to find a primitive species ready for conquest. What they found was a nightmare. Their weapons were useless. Their sensors were screaming with impossible data. They were fighting an enemy that was everywhere and nowhere. They were arrogant, so sure of their power, and we used that against them. Our ghost fleet flickered back into reality just long enough to land crippling blows, then vanished before the Krell could even return fire. We turned their perfectly planned invasion into a chaotic, terrifying rout. They fled, leaving behind a baffled and broken armada. We had won. We had taken the impossible and made it our shield and our sword. After the battle, I stood on the bridge of the Defender, looking out at the stars. Our future had been just like that quantum sphere in the lab, a shimmering cloud of good and bad possibilities. The Krell saw us as weak, as an easy target, and in one timeline they were right. But because a few crazy scientists refused to give up, and because we chose to believe in a wild idea, we collapsed that cloud of potential into a single, undeniable reality. Humanity was not to be messed with. The moral of the story? Sometimes, the craziest ideas are the only ones that can save you. The future is never written in stone. It's a choice. And as long as we have the courage to choose the impossible, we'll always have a fighting chance. The quantum lock worked perfectly, without a single glitch in our normal operations. "Commander, we've got company," yelled her tactical officer, a woman named Kelly Price. 3 drones, Vector 9. They're packing training rounds, but they're coming in fast." This was it, the moment of truth. These drones were programmed to mimic the battle tactics of alien warships. If the quantum lock held up, none of their attacks would even scratch the paint. On his screen, Jake saw the drones close the distance. They unleashed a barrage of simulated missiles, electromagnetic pulses, and even solid projectiles. But every single shot passed straight through the Defender like it was a ghost. The ship was both there and not there, caught in a quantum state that made it untouchable by any conventional weapon. "It works," Kelly breathed. "Holy heck, it actually works. They can't touch us. Now let's see if we can touch them." "Kelly, lock onto the lead drone. Fire when you're ready." The defenders' weapons were something special. The slugs they fired were quantum-tagged, synced up with the ship's own field. They basically existed everywhere and nowhere until the split second before impact, when they would snap into reality at the perfect moment to hit their mark. Kelly smashed the firing button. The railgun launched a tungsten slug at a mind-boggling speed. The drone tried to swerve, but it was useless. The quantum slug popped into existence less than a yard from the drone's hull, already moving faster than its sensors could even register. The training drone vanished in a brilliant flash of sparks and shrapnel. "Target destroyed," Kelly reported, her voice buzzing with excitement. "Commander, this changes absolutely everything. We're ghosts, but they're solid. This isn't just a defensive edge, it's complete and total domination." Jake leaned back in his command chair, watching the last few drones bug out, finally realizing they stood no chance. Caroline had been right. This tech would completely level the playing field against any alien race, no matter how far ahead of us they were. Humanity had figured out how to cheat at the game of war. But as the Defender slipped back into Earth's orbit and Jake started typing up his report, he couldn't shake a weird feeling in his gut. They had built something incredible, something that gave humanity a real fighting chance. But with great power comes great responsibility, and he wasn't sure if humanity was ready to carry that weight. 3 months later, his worries didn't matter anymore. The Krell arrived right on schedule, exactly when Caroline said they would. 23 colossal warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of our solar system, their weapons hot and their message crystal clear. They sent a simple broadcast in choppy English: surrender or die. In response, Earth Command launched the Quantum Fleet. In the few months since the Defender's successful test, we had managed to build 17 more quantum-locked ships. They were small, slapped together in a hurry, and crewed by volunteers who knew they might be the last line of defense for everyone back home. Jake was in command of the lead ship, which had been quickly renamed the UHS Valiant after a rushed ceremony. His crew were pros by now, drilled in quantum combat tactics developed through countless hours of intense simulations. They knew how to fight while being everywhere and nowhere at once. They knew how to use quantum-tagged weapons to hit enemies who thought they were perfectly safe. As the Quantum Fleet rocketed toward the Krell Armada, Jake opened a channel to all his ships. "This is Commander Morrison to all vessels. Remember your training. Stay in quantum lock, trust the tech, and let's show these aliens why you don't poke the human hornet's nest." The Krell ships fired first, letting loose terrifying volleys that would have vaporized normal ships in an instant. Bolts of plasma, antimatter missiles, and beam weapons that could carve through armor like a hot knife through butter. The space between the two fleets lit up with enough raw power to scorch a small moon. And every single shot passed right through the quantum-locked human ships like they weren't even there. On the Krell flagship, War Master Throck stared at his tactical displays, his confusion quickly turning to rage. His weapons officer kept reporting that every shot was a direct hit, but 0 damage was being registered. The human ships were right there on the sensors, looking solid and real, but they were somehow immune to every single weapon in the Krell arsenal. "What kind of trickery is this?" Throck roared. "Fire again. Concentrate everything you have on the lead ship." The entire Krell fleet focused its firepower on the Valiant. Jake watched hundreds of deadly projectiles phase right through his ship without leaving a scratch, feeling that bizarre sensation of being everywhere and nowhere at the same time. His crew was rock solid, totally professional, just waiting for his command. "All ships return fire. Let's show them what our quantum toys can do." The human fleet opened up with everything they had: railguns, missiles, and beam cannons. Every shot was quantum-tagged, existing in that strange in-between state until the last possible second. The Krell shields, designed to stop physical attacks, were completely useless against weapons that didn't technically exist in normal space until they were already inside the defensive perimeter. 3 Krell ships exploded in the very first volley. 5 more went completely dark as quantum missiles materialized right inside their reactor cores. The remaining ships broke formation, scattering in a panic, trying to escape an enemy they couldn't possibly understand. "All ships pursue," Jake ordered calmly. "Don't give them a chance to regroup." The whole battle was over in less than an hour. By the end, 15 Krell ships were nothing but floating wreckage, and the last 8 had jumped back into hyperspace, screaming messages of confusion and utter defeat. Humanity's quantum fleet hadn't suffered a single scratch, not one casualty. Jake sat in his command chair, watching the fields of debris drift past his window. They had won against impossible odds, against a race that had conquered dozens of star systems. Humanity had just scored a flawless victory, all because they refused to play by the normal rules. Caroline's voice crackled over a private channel. "Commander, our sensors are picking up transmissions from the retreating Krell ships. They're sending reports back to their home empire about what just happened here." "What are they saying?" "That humanity has weapons that break the laws of physics, that our ships can't be destroyed by any conventional means, that fighting us is basically suicide." Caroline paused for a second. "Commander, I think we just became the galaxy's newest boogeyman. Every species that hears about this fight is going to think twice before ever messing with Earth." Jake gazed out at the stars, at the endless sea of possibilities they held. Humanity had crossed a line today. They'd proven they weren't just some backwater species ready to be conquered. They were something new, something that didn't play by the rules, something that made even the top predators in the galaxy take a step back. And that was both terrifying and incredibly exciting. "Get me Earth Command," Jake said finally. "Tell them the quantum lock works even better than we dreamed, and tell them we're going to need more ships, a lot more ships, because after today, the whole galaxy knows we're here, and they're definitely going to have questions." As the Valiant turned for home, Jake couldn't help but wonder what was next. They had won the battle, but the war for humanity's place among the stars was just getting started. And somewhere out there, in the massive dark void between stars, other species were watching and listening and making their own plans. But whatever came next, humanity would face it with their quantum-locked ships and the confidence that they had found a way to even the odds. They had taken the universe's own rulebook and bent it to their will, and that had made all the difference. The message showed up on a frequency humanity had never even used before. It came through on every single communications device at the same time, slicing through security protocols and encryption as if they were made of paper. When the translation software finally sorted it out, the words were simple and straight to the point. The Galactic Council wanted to talk. Captain Nicole Hayes read the message for the 3rd time, sitting in her small office on board the UHSS Guardian. 6 months had gone by since Jake Morrison and the Quantum Fleet had smashed the Krell Armada. 6 months of building new ships as fast as they could, training new crews, and keeping a nervous eye on the stars for any sign of revenge. But instead of another attack fleet, they got an invitation. "They want us to meet them in neutral space," she said out loud, looking across her desk at Lieutenant Peter Chen, her second in command. "Sector 97 Alpha, that's a 3-week trip at top speed." "Could be a trap," Peter suggested. He was young but always played it safe, thinking about the worst-case scenario. "We made the Krell look pretty foolish. Maybe they got their buddies to help them finish the job." Nicole slowly shook her head. "I don't think so. The message has authentication codes from 17 different alien species. The Krell are on the list, yeah, but So are the Vex Collective, the Thulian Empire, the Skoroth Hives, and a dozen others we've never even heard of. This isn't a war party. This is something else entirely. So what's the plan, Captain? The plan is we go, and we bring enough firepower to make sure everybody plays nice. Nicole stood up and walked over to her viewport, staring at the blue marble of Earth in the distance. Alert the fleet. I want 12 ships ready to move in 48 hours. Full quantum capability, all weapon systems online. We're going to go meet the neighbors, and we're going to make damn sure they understand we're not to be messed with. The trip to Sector 97 Alpha took 19 days. Nicole spent nearly all of it cramming everything humanity knew about galactic politics, which, to be honest, wasn't much. The Krell had been our first hostile encounter, but data we pulled from their wrecked ships suggested there were hundreds of alien races out there, each with its own territory, its own plans, and its own ancient beefs with everyone else. On the morning of the 20th day, the Guardian and its escort fleet dropped out of their quantum drive at the coordinates from the message. What they saw floating in space literally took Nicole's breath away. The station was gigantic, easily the size of a small moon. It hung there in the blackness between stars, a massive spinning ring that created its own gravity. Docked all around the station were ships from dozens of different species, each one a unique and bizarre design. Some ships were graceful, others were raw and functional, and a handful were just plain weird. "Beginning scans," Lieutenant Sarah Brooks announced from her science station. "I'm picking up life support for over 40 different types of atmospheres. This place is built to accommodate literally every species you can think of. They've got methane zones, high-pressure nitrogen areas, even sections that seem to be filled with liquid ammonia." "How many ships are we looking at?" Nicole asked. 93 on my screen. Could be more hiding on the station's far side. Hold on. Getting a signal. They're giving us a docking assignment. The Guardian threaded its way through the cosmic traffic jam, keenly aware that every ship it passed was likely watching with a mix of awe and terror. In the 6 months since the fight with the Krell, the human quantum fleet had become legendary, or maybe notorious. Stories zipped across the galaxy about ships that were impossible to hit, weapons that appeared inside enemy hulls, and a species that had figured out how to shatter the basic laws of physics. Nicole wasn't a fan of being famous. Fame drew attention, and attention was just another word for danger. The docking sequence took a solid hour. Once they were secure, Nicole gathered her team in the airlock. She brought Peter, of course, along with Dr. Raymond Cole, a xenobiologist specializing in first contact situations, and Commander Linda Martinez, her head of security. They were all in their formal uniforms and all were armed, though Nicole prayed they wouldn't have to use their weapons. "Let's be clear," she said while they waited for the airlock to cycle. "We are here to observe and understand. We don't make promises we can't back up. We don't spill any secrets. And for the love of God, nobody starts a fight." "And if they start one," Linda countered, "then we end it. But let's really hope it doesn't get to that." The airlock door hissed open, revealing a hallway that looked like nothing Nicole had ever imagined. The walls seemed to pulse with colors in a pattern she couldn't decipher. The gravity felt just a little off, as if the station's spin wasn't quite synced for human comfort, and the air had a strange tang to it, a mix of ozone and some unidentifiable organic smell. A creature was waiting for them down the corridor. It was about 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that glowed with shifting bioluminescent lights. Its face was vaguely human-shaped, but with way too many eyes, each one swiveling to focus on a different member of her team. "Welcome, humans," the creature said, its voice coming from a translator hanging where a neck would be. "I am Coordinator Velk. I am the manager of this station, tasked with ensuring peaceful relations between all species. Please follow me to the assembly chamber." They walked down corridors that stretched on and on, passing aliens from species Nicole didn't even have names for. Some paid them no mind, while others stared, their expressions impossible to read. A few even scrambled to get out of their way, as if just being near a human was contagious. "They're afraid of us," Peter whispered. "Good," Linda murmured back. "A little fear keeps people honest." The assembly chamber was a massive circular room with rows of seats rising up toward a domed ceiling. Each section was clearly designed for a different species, with shimmering force fields separating their unique atmospheres. In the very center of the room sat a raised platform for speakers to address the crowd. Coordinator Velk showed them to a section in the middle tier, pointing to seats that had obviously been adjusted for human bodies. "Your delegation will be called to the central platform to speak. Until that time, please just observe. The session is about to begin." Nicole took her seat, her team settling in around her. From her spot, she could see the whole chamber as it filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy. There had to be hundreds of beings in here, maybe thousands, all brought together to talk about something so critical it could make ancient rivals sit in the same room. A deep chime rang through the chamber, and every conversation instantly died. A figure stepped onto the central platform, and Nicole's blood ran cold. She knew him from the intelligence reports. It was War Master Throck of the Krell Dominion, the very same commander who had led the assault on Earth 6 months ago. "We are gathered today," Throck boomed, his voice echoing through the chamber, "to confront a danger to galactic peace. The species calling themselves humans has created a technology that breaks the fundamental rules of war. Their ships can enter a quantum state, making them invincible to our weapons. They can attack without any risk of being hit back. This technology is an existential threat to every single species in this room." A wave of murmurs washed over the assembly. Nicole kept her expression a perfect mask of calm, even though every instinct screamed at her to jump up and defend her people. But she knew the Council's rules. Speaking out of turn was a massive mistake. Throck went on. "The humans wiped out an entire Krell battle fleet and took 0 casualties. Not one damaged ship, not one life lost. They won a total victory against a force that should have crushed them. And now they're building more of these quantum ships. We've counted 17, and there are probably more. If we let them continue, they will dominate the entire galaxy within a decade." Another alien rose to speak, a crystalline being that bent the light in a way that hurt to look at. Nicole knew this was a representative of the Lithos, a species famous for their scientific minds. The Lithos have studied the quantum technology the humans are using. Our models indicate that the widespread use of these quantum-locked ships could tear the fabric of space-time itself. If more than 50 ships enter a superposition in the same area, the probability fields could create a chain reaction. Reality as we know it could collapse in that region. Nicole felt Dr. Cole go rigid beside her. "Is that true?" she whispered. I don't know," Raymond confessed quietly. "We've never run a simulation with that many ships. We thought the quantum fields would just merge harmlessly. But if they're right about a cascade effect..." A third speaker appeared, this one looking like a giant insect with shimmering, transparent wings. The translator identified it as a member of the Vex Collective. "The Vex demand immediate action. The human homeworld must be quarantined. No quantum ship will be permitted to leave their solar system. The technology must be contained, studied by a joint scientific council, and if it is deemed too dangerous, destroyed." That was it. Nicole was on her feet before she could stop herself. "And what if we refuse?" A dead silence fell over the chamber. Thousands of alien eyes snapped to her. She could feel their collective gaze like a physical weight, but she held her head high and her voice was firm. Coordinator Velk's voice echoed, "The human delegation has not been recognized to speak. Please take your seat." "With all due respect, Coordinator," Nicole said, stepping into the aisle so everyone could see her, "I think I have a right to respond when someone proposes locking up my entire species." "You want to put Earth under quarantine? By what right? We never asked to join your galactic club. We never attacked anyone who didn't attack us first. The Krell showed up in our system with their guns hot and their intentions obvious. We defended our home. That is not a crime." Throck's mandibles clicked together in a sound that could have been anger or amusement. "You defended yourselves with a weapon that should never exist. You shattered the rules that have governed warfare for 1,000,000 years." "Maybe those rules deserve to be shattered," Nicole shot back. "You talk about the fundamental laws of warfare like they're some holy text, but they're not. They're just rules the strong use to keep the weak in their place. Well, we found a way to even the odds, and you hate it because it means you can't push us around anymore." Another creature stood up, this one a reptilian alien whose scales shimmered with changing colors. "The human speaks with fire, but not with sense. She is ignorant of galactic history. The conventions of war are there for a reason. They stop conflicts from escalating into total destruction. If every species chased after the ultimate weapon without any limits, someone, somewhere, would eventually invent something that destroys everything." "Like what you're accusing us of doing?" Nicole challenged. "You claim our quantum tech could unravel reality. Okay, show me the data. Show me your math. Let our scientists look at your findings and confirm them. Because from where I'm standing, this doesn't sound like you're worried about the galaxy. It sounds like you're terrified that humanity can finally fight back." The chamber exploded into a cacophony of noise. Aliens were shouting at each other, their translators straining to handle dozens of conversations at once. Some seemed to side with Nicole, others were demanding an immediate strike on Earth, and yet others were suggesting complex diplomatic webs of treaties and oversight committees. Coordinator Velk let out a sound that cut through the uproar like a knife. A piercing tone somewhere between a bell and a scream that instantly silenced everyone. Model C. "This meeting is going nowhere. We'll take a 2-hour recess," the coordinator announced. "During that time, feel free to engage in informal chats. When we're back, we'll hear formal proposals." As the chamber started to clear out, Nicole sank back into her seat. Peter leaned in, his face etched with worry. "Captain, that was a pretty bold move. We need these people to like us." "Do we?" Nicole shot back. "Peter, take a good look around. Every single species in this room clawed its way here with bigger ships or better tech. They're not going to help us out of the goodness of their hearts. They're going to do what's best for them. If they're a little scared of us, maybe they'll think twice before pulling something. Or they'll team up to take out the new threat," Linda countered. "Captain, if just half the empires in this room decided to attack Earth all at once, our quantum fleet wouldn't stand a chance. We'd be crushed by sheer numbers alone." Nicole knew Linda had a point, but showing weakness right now would be a death sentence. In this galaxy, strength was the only thing that earned respect. A brutal lesson humanity learned the hard way when the Krell attacked. During the break, several groups approached Nicole's team. A few were openly hostile, basically telling them to hand over their quantum tech or else. Others were smoother, offering alliances and trade deals, all with the goal of getting a peek at their research. But a few seemed genuinely fascinated, asking how humans had managed to do something everyone else thought was impossible. The most fascinating conversation, though, came from a totally unexpected place. A tiny creature, barely 3 feet tall and covered in fur, walked up to Nicole, taking hesitant steps. The translator identified him as April, a species Nicole had never even heard of. "Captain Hayes," the being squeaked, "could I have a private word?" Nicole nodded toward a quiet corner of the massive room. "What's on your mind?" "My name is Keeper Rix. I represent a people with no army, no fancy technology, nothing that would make us matter to the big empires. We get by because we're useful, offering services others need. For 300 years, the Prill have been the archivists and historians for the Galactic Council." "That's interesting," Nicole said. "But what does that have to do with us?" Rix's huge eyes blinked slowly. "I've read the histories, Captain. Every species that joins this community follows the same script. They figure out faster than light travel. They meet the big players. They sign treaties, make trade deals, and find their little spot in the pecking order. But once in a very long while, a species shows up that breaks the mold, one that refuses to just play by the established rules. Do you know what happens to them?" A shiver went down Nicole's spine. "What happens?" "They either remake the entire galaxy or they're wiped out. There's no middle ground. The old powers can't stand a species that shakes up the status quo. But if that new species is strong enough, smart enough, and lucky enough, they can force everyone else to play by their rules instead." Rix paused, his furry face giving nothing away. "I think humanity could be one of those species, but you have to understand what you're truly up against." "I'm listening." "The empires in this room aren't afraid of your quantum technology. They're afraid of what it means. For millions of years, this galaxy has run on one simple rule: might makes right. The strongest rule. The weak serve them or get crushed. Your quantum ships shatter that rule. They make military power almost meaningless. A single human ship can take down a Krell battleship 10 times its size. That isn't just a tactical edge, it flips the entire galactic order upside down." "So what are they planning to do?" "They'll try to box you in," Rick said. "Not with a direct attack, not at first. It's too risky with your ships. Instead, they'll isolate you. They'll tell everyone that humans are dangerous crazies who are going to rip a hole in reality. They'll cut off trade, block your systems, and turn galactic opinion against you. Then, once you're alone and desperate, they'll give you a choice: join their club on their terms or be eliminated." Nicole let that sink in. "So you're saying this whole council meeting is just a show? They've already made up their minds?" "Pretty much, yes. But you still have a chance to change the script. If you can find allies, species who see a benefit in siding with you, you might be able to force a different ending. The galaxy isn't one big happy family, Captain. Some species are sick of the Krell's bullying. Others hate the Vex's suffocating rules. Some dream of a galaxy where having the biggest fleet isn't the only thing that matters." "Like the Prill?" Rix made a sound like a dry chuckle. "We're too small and weak to be that kind of ally. But we can offer information, and information is its own kind of power. I can tell you which species might listen to you. I can warn you about the ones who are already plotting against you. All I ask in return is that if you do manage to change the galaxy, you remember the little guys who helped you when no one else would." Nicole didn't hesitate. "You have a deal. Tell me everything." For the next hour, Rix gave her a crash course in galactic politics. He pointed out 3 potential allies: the Draon, a race of merchants who cared more about profit than politics; the Coral, a warrior society that respected strength above all else; and the Silicate Communes, a group of AIs who thought organic life running the show was an idea long past its prime. When the assembly started up again, Nicole had a plan. The second coordinator Velk asked for proposals. She requested the floor. This time, playing by the rules, she was granted permission. Nicole walked to the center platform, knowing that the speech she was about to give could decide the fate of her entire species. She took a deep breath. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," she began. "I've heard your concerns about our quantum technology. I've heard you call us dangerous, reckless, and a threat to reality itself. And you know what? Some of that might be true. We're new here. We don't know all the rules. But let's talk about the real issue, the one no one wants to admit." She paused, letting the translators do their work. "You're not scared of our technology. You're scared you can't control us. For millions of years, the rule in this galaxy has been simple. The one with the bigger guns wins. The Krell conquered 47 systems because they had better weapons. The Vex rule through an iron fist they call harmony. Every empire here was built on the backs of species who couldn't fight back." Angry murmurs rippled through the chamber, but Nicole pushed forward. "And now here comes humanity, with technology that makes your massive fleets obsolete. And you have no idea what to do. You can't conquer us because you can't hit our ships. You can't scare us because we've already proven we can hold our own. So your plan is to lock us away, poke at us, and maybe eventually get rid of the problem. You're hiding it behind talk of galactic stability and space-time, but the truth is much simpler. You're scared of a little competition." War Master Throck shot to his feet. "The humans' words are reckless and ignore the very real danger of quantum cascade effects." "Then let's deal with that danger," Nicole shot back. "You're worried our quantum fields could destabilize a sector? Okay. Let's set up safety protocols. Let's agree on a maximum number of ships per region. Let's start a joint research project to study the effects and build safeguards. I'm all for being careful. What I'm not for is a demand that humanity give up its only defense while all of you keep your fleets." A new voice cut in. It was a Drawn, one of the species Keeper Rix had pointed out. "The human has a point. If the technology is the problem, the answer is regulation, not a ban." The Drawn then made a proposal. Humanity agrees to limits on its quantum ships. In exchange, the Council officially recognizes human territory and opens up full trade rights across all member systems. That kicked off a whole new firestorm of arguments. The Krell flat out refused to recognize humanity's existence. The Vex argued that quantum tech should be shared with everyone to stop a human monopoly. The Coral representative just said that humanity had earned its place by beating the Krell, and in their culture, that was the only argument that mattered. The debate raged for 6 hours. Deals were offered, altered, and shot down. Alliances formed and then fell apart. Nicole found herself haggling with species she'd never even heard of, making compromises on things she barely understood, all while fighting to protect humanity's future. Finally, as the station's artificial sun dimmed for the night cycle, Coordinator Velk called for a vote. The deal they were offering was a tangled mess of agreements and limitations. Nicole wasn't thrilled, but she could stomach it. Humanity would cap its quantum fleet at 100 ships, and those ships would be forbidden from entering certain sensitive areas. Our scientists would also have to join a research program to study quantum effects. In return, Earth and its colonies would be declared sovereign territory, given full trading privileges, and protected from attack by any council member. The vote dragged on for an hour. Different species were on their faster-than-light comms, checking in with their home worlds. Alliances were forming in quiet corners, striking last-minute bargains. Nicole just sat there, watching the gears of galactic politics turn, and couldn't help but wonder if this was a real victory or just another kind of trap. When they finally announced the results, the proposal had passed, but just barely. Humanity was now an official member of the galactic community, with all the rights and duties that came with it. Nicole should have felt a wave of relief. Instead, she just felt drained and had a weird feeling in the pit of her stomach. She'd done what she set out to do. She'd secured a place for Earth in the galaxy and stopped a war we probably couldn't have won. But something about it all just felt off. Later that night, as Nicole was alone in her quarters on the Guardian, she heard a knock at her door. When she opened it, Keeper Rick was standing there in the hallway, his furry face as impossible to read as always. "Congratulations on your victory, Captain." "Was it really a victory?" she asked. "I'm not so sure." "You're more perceptive than I gave you credit for. May I come in?" Nicole nodded, and Rick walked in, hopping onto a chair that was way too big for him. "You're right to feel uncertain," he said. "What happened today was a compromise, and compromises never make anyone completely happy. But you did accomplish something huge. You bought humanity time." "Time for what?" "Time to grow, to build, to figure out where you fit in this galaxy." Rick's big eyes looked at her intently. "The species in that room today, they still see you humans as dangerous brutes who just got lucky with some powerful tech. They figure they can manage you, keep you in a box, and eventually absorb you into the way things have always been. But I've looked into your history, Captain Hayes. I've read about your wars, your revolutions, your stubborn refusal to just accept things you don't like. I don't think you're the type to be contained." "So what do you think will happen?" she asked. "I think humanity will keep breaking the rules. You'll figure out new ways to bend quantum mechanics. You'll invent technologies that make your current quantum lock look like a child's toy. And most importantly, you'll make other species start to question the old ways. There are hundreds of races in this galaxy who are sick of being bossed around by the Krell, the Vex, and the other big powers. They've just been waiting for someone to show them that the old rules can be broken. And today, you did just that." Nicole sank onto her bunk, the weight of his words hitting her. "So we're just headed for another war, only a bigger one." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe you'll build something new, a whole different way for the galaxy to work, one that isn't just based on who has the biggest ships. It's possible, Captain. It's tough, risky, and probably won't happen. But it's possible." Rick got up and walked toward the door. "I came to give you something, information that might help you in the coming years." He handed Nicole a small data chip. "This has everything the pill archives have on the ancient species, the ones who were here long before the current powers that be. They created wonders we can barely wrap our minds around, but they also messed up. They made tech they couldn't control and fought wars that left scars across the galaxy. Their failures are your warnings, Captain. Learn from them." "Why are you helping us?" "Because I believe in what humanity stands for, even if you don't see it yourselves yet. You're not just another empire trying to take over. You're something brand new, and this galaxy is desperate for something new." Rix opened the door but paused. "One last thing, Captain. The vote today was razor thin. If just 5 species had voted differently, the outcome would have been the opposite. 3 of those species were paid off by the Krell to vote yes. 2 were threatened by the Vex to vote no, but the Dran countered that threat with promises of their own. That wasn't democracy you saw today. It was just backroom politics." "Then what was the point of it all?" "The point," he said, "is that you're now in the game. You have a seat at the table. You can make your own deals, form your own alliances, and push your own agenda. Use that power wisely, Captain, because the next time a vote about humanity's fate comes up, you'd better have enough friends in your corner." After Rix was gone, Nicole just sat there for a long time, trying to process everything he'd said. Earth Command would chalk this mission up as a win. We got recognition, avoided a war, and secured our spot in the galaxy. But Nicole now understood what Keeper Rix was really telling her. This wasn't the end of humanity's troubles. It was the beginning of a much bigger, more complicated game. She looked at the data chip he'd given her and locked it away securely in her safe. Tomorrow, she'd begin the trip back to Earth. She'd give her report, sit through all the debriefings and parties, and then get right back to training more crews for the quantum fleet. Because one thing was for sure. The galaxy's top dogs might not want to fight our quantum-locked ships right now. But that didn't mean they'd given up on getting rid of the threat humanity posed. They'd just shifted from military tactics to political ones. And in a lot of ways, that was a whole lot scarier. Nicole walked over to her viewport and stared out at the endless sea of stars. Somewhere back on Earth, people were probably celebrating our acceptance into the Galactic Club. They thought the fight was over. They thought we'd won. Nicole knew better. The real challenge was only just starting. Humanity had broken the galaxy's rules and dodged the immediate fallout. Now, we had to learn how to survive in a universe that would constantly try to put us back in our place. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was defying expectations. We proved it when we cracked quantum technology, and we proved it again when we beat the Krell. And we would keep on proving it day after day, until the galaxy finally got the message that humanity was here to stay. The Guardian's engines began to hum as the ship prepped for the journey home. Nicole went back to her command chair, ready for whatever was coming. She had bought us time, just like Keeper Rick said. Now it was up to humanity to use that time well. Outside her window, the station kept on spinning, a hub for representatives from all over the galaxy as they argued, bargained, and schemed. The Galactic Council was scheduled to meet again in 6 months to check on how the new agreements were working out. Nicole made a mental note to be there, to keep watching, to keep learning the ins and outs of this ancient political game. Because the next time humanity needed something from the Galactic Council, she would be ready. She'd know which species to talk to, which favors to call in, which threats were real and which were just bluffs. She had learned how to play their game. And maybe, just maybe, humanity could figure out how to change the rules completely. Not with brute force this time, but with something quieter and way more powerful. With ideas, with inspiration, by showing the galaxy there were other ways to build a civilization besides the top-down, brutal power structure that had ruled for millions of years. It was a huge dream, maybe even an impossible one. But Nicole had learned a valuable lesson over the last few days. The galaxy was chock full of species who thought impossible things could never happen, right up until the moment humanity showed up and did them anyway. The Guardian leaped into quantum drive, leaving the station and its politics far behind as it raced for home. Alone in her quarters, Nicole finally let a small smile spread across her face. We had survived first contact with the galactic community. We had made it clear that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Now for the hard part, living up to the reputation we had just built.